Hey everyone, welcome to Two Car Pros. My name is Ryan, and today I'm going to show you exactly what to check when your car's not cranking. So this is a no cranking video. I'm going to do a whole non-starting video in the future, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. So I've done my best to compile a list of things that, in my experience, I have found are the most common and the easiest to fix at home, so it saves you a trip to the mechanic. This is something you could totally do in your driveway or garage or just watching your phone and following along. These are very easy steps that are hopefully going to save you some money or have a better understanding of why your car isn't working. Now, this video does not include every last little solution. You might have an extra weird problem that I'm not covering in this video. There's a million different things that can go wrong with a car. I couldn't possibly cover them in a succinct video. And in that instance, I urge you to go to our website, twocarpros.com, where you can ask a question for absolutely free, and an automotive expert will be along shortly to answer your question. So I show you the problem and how to fix it. There's a lot of ground to cover, so let's jump right in. So before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate what I mean by not cranking. So you go to turn the key and watch. Nada. Nothing's happening. So that's what I mean when something is not even cranking. It's called a no crank, no start situation. So the very first thing you got to check when you have a no crank situation is for a dead battery, and that's pretty simple. Put your key in the ignition and turn it. Does anything happen? Do the lights come on? No lights coming on? You probably have a dead battery or a bad connection. Another scenario is when you get in the car and you turn to the ignition position, all the lights come on, everything seems normal, and then you go to crank it and all the lights come back off. The lights are turned off, I release the key, and the lights come back on. So another thing that happens that's kind of falls under not cranking is slow cranking. Watch what I mean. So the engine is not spinning fast enough to get the ECM to say, hey, it's okay to start. Another thing that happens is when you go to crank it, and I can't really replicate it because you need a low battery, is it'll kind of make a ratcheting sound, like a either after it's done slow cranking, or it'll just do that right off of the bat. And that pretty much means you have a battery that's either gone flat, going flat, or just plain bad. And before we get started on this battery, you'll notice I am wearing gloves. These are protective gloves, just so I don't get any battery acid on my skin. It's really dangerous. I would also wear some eye protection because these things can go awry. You don't want any of these harmful chemicals anywhere near your skin or eyes. So this is the battery in the truck we were just in, and I happen to notice that it is fairly new looking. It has no corrosion, no visible damage, nothing like that. Both the connections look very nice and clean. If your connections are not clean, that might be your problem. Or what I did notice is, check this out, the ground is really loose. That can be all your problems right there. And how simple, just take a 10mm wrench in this instance and tighten that nut back up. So when you are tightening the nuts down on your battery terminals, like I'm doing on this one, what you don't want to do is touch this wrench to the positive or the positive negative. Another tip that kind of goes missing sometimes, and automakers know to put the positive inborn most of the time, but what can happen is if you have a very long wrench or something like that. But check this out. This isn't too far away from the sheet metal. If you had a long wrench and you're touching the positive to the body, which is negative, you're going to create an arc, and that could ignite the gases of the battery. It can shock you, it can burn you, it can cause all kinds of problems. So if you're using a long implement, be careful to not touch the battery to the body at any time. Just avoid it completely, be safe, and be smart. We just want to make sure this is nice and snug so it doesn't move like this, and it's absolutely perfect. I think that's going to solve the problems on this truck. Also, if you open up the hood and it smells like sulfur, or you physically see acid on the top of the battery, don't even mess with it. You have a bad battery, get a new one. And for heaven's sakes, do not hit the battery. Don't hit it with a shoe or a hammer or something like that. It is rare, but it does happen. They can explode and harm you, so don't ever strike the battery. So after we're reasonably sure the battery is okay, we want to take a look at the fuses. So go ahead and remove the fuse panel cover, and we're going to study the inside of it. And it should tell you whether or not it has a starter fuse. It probably does. Ours happens to be this 15 amp right here. Go ahead and take that out. Nice tool. And just look at it. Is it broken in the middle? It's kind of tough to show on camera. Oh, you can see that. This one looks perfectly fine, so we can go ahead and put that back. A lot of the times it'll also have a starter relay. Ours happens to be this one right here on this particular truck, so we can go ahead and remove that. Okay, pull the bad relay out, or suspected bad. I'm gonna go ahead and get a new one. So new relay, fresh from Toyota. Just plug it in, see if it works. Alternatively, if you had a relay that wasn't this interesting pin configuration, you could like swap this relay with this relay or something like that, but this one's a little bit of a special relay. So we're gonna just try a new one from Toyota. And now we can see if the truck cranks. So another thing that happens is the gear range sensor, or sometimes we used to call it a neutral safety switch back in the day, on an automatic transmission vehicle goes out. Watch what I mean by that. Keys in the ignition, I'm in park, nothing happens. The lights are on, nothing's happening, because the truck thinks that the shifter is not in neutral or park. And what happens is it won't start. So let's say you're neutral like it is now, it's not ever gonna wanna do that because it's super dangerous to have that happen. So automakers make it so it's in park or neutral, it'll start. So it basically has a backup neutral safety switch, for a better word. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it in neutral and watch. Because this contact is never used, it'll start. So that's a quick and easy tip. If it's not starting, put it in neutral, see if it starts. So now we're in a manual vehicle, and you can see, got a stick shift right here, and the neutral safety switch is actually in the clutch pedal. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the key in, press the clutch, nothing happens. Let's find out why. So looky here, there's our clutch pedal. Our neutral safety switch is located up above, and it's not being defeated because you can't push the clutch pedal down all the way. A lot of times people's floor mats kind of get up and jammed behind there, and they can't push this down all the way, and their car doesn't crank, and here's the problem with that. Sometimes it can be, a child's toy, car mat, something like that. I'm just using a sweatshirt here to kind of simulate that. And now look, you can actually depress it all the way, defeating the neutral safety switch and enabling the truck to crank. Another really easy trick is that sometimes, some cars, you have to put your foot on the brake before it even starts. Even if it's in the park and the neutral safety switch is satisfied, it won't start unless your foot is on the brake. Watch. See, it doesn't start, but watch. All I'm gonna do is put my foot on the brake. Starts right up. So another quick tip for you. The next thing you should check is your serpentine belt. Sometimes serpentine belts that go around, you gotta think what they do. They transfer power from the crank to accessories like the alternator here. And if the alternator or another accessory like the water pump, power steering pump, or AC compressor is locked up, inside of it will actually jam and stop the serpentine belt from turning over. And what does the serpentine belt run around? The crankshaft pulley. So it will physically stop the engine from turning over altogether. So what I recommend doing is taking the belt off, and what that looks like is going to be different engine to engine, but just take that belt off and see if it cranks over and starts. Don't run it for very long because your water pump's probably not running, but if it works, hey, there you go. You've got a seized accessory somewhere. So now we come to the underside of the truck. Here is our starter. If you're having a situation where it won't even turn over, can't hear the starter working at all or anything like that, this is my go-to trick. You see our starter, avoid touching the power cables or anything like that. But while you're trying to crank it over, have somebody in the driver's seat cranking it over, and then you're gonna take some sort of metal implement, piece of rebar, a rock and a pinch, but I have these extensions that work really well. So one, we're going to just give it some taps right here on the body while we're cranking it. So go ahead and start cranking it. And there we go. Started right up. I had them turn it off for me for instructional purposes, but you wouldn't do that in real life. And be careful, don't put your hands anywhere that gets hot or moves. So the next problem I want to talk about is a security lockout. Here is my security indicator on my pickup truck. And sometimes they're down here in the dashboard area. It'll have like security lit up or something like that. You can see mine's just blinking when the ignition is off, but watch what happens when I turn the ignition on. It just lights up solid. This means that the security system is working properly and it turns itself off. If it was just sitting there blinking, just a red light, blinky, blinky, blink with the ignition on, and you try cranking it and nothing happens, well, you're probably security locked out and you have to fix that. And we're gonna have another separate video just for that situation. Thank you so very much for watching. That is the easiest things to sort of check and find out before you just take it right to a mechanic. This is something you could do at home in your own garage and save yourself time, money, and headache, especially if it's something super simple and you can fix it for basically free. So the other half of the equation is when you're cranking and the engine doesn't actually turn on. That's what's called a crank no start situation. This video has been not even cranking. So those are your differences. And as soon as I'm done with the other video on the crank no start, I will leave a link down below in the description and a pinned comment so you can check that one out as well. If you've tried everything in this video, again, please go to our website, twocarpros.com, where you can ask a question for absolutely free, and an automotive expert will be along shortly to help you. If you found this video helpful, interesting, and all, please consider giving it a like or even subscribing. It really helps the channel out. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.